And for more on this, we are now being joined by Adi Levy. Levy is an Israeli Institute Fellow at the Florida University there. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, Mr. Levy.
Hello.
Now, the first batch of hostages are back in Israel. A total of 24 hostages have been freed in exchange for 39 jailed Palestinians. So clearly, the mechanics of the deal are working. How do you see things panning out from here on?
Well, it's a very emotional day, and it's a very difficult situation to navigate. Obviously, there's an Israeli obligation to bring back all these people who have been held hostage by the terrorist organization Hamas, and there's also a security threat. The war has been going on for quite some time, and obviously this raises a risk of the operation for Israel. But I think it was the right decision to bring these innocent civilians back home, children and infants. So eventually, it's a moral obligation to return these people to their houses.
Right. You say it's a moral obligation to get back the hostages back to Israel. But do you think Netanyahu was under international pressure or domestic pressure as well?
I think that Netanyahu and Israel is, in general, is navigating a very complex situation. On one hand, it has a moral obligation to bring back hostages taken from their houses. On the other hand, it has to fight for the security of its people and eliminate the threat that Hamas poses, and all the criticism and that has been raised against Israel since the beginning of the war. So it's a very difficult situation to navigate, and at this point, I think under the circumstances, bringing back the hostages was the right decision.
Right, Mr. Levy.
There was some domestic pressure by Israelis to expedite this deal. And we heard that there was also international pressure on Israel to establish a humanitarian ceasefire in order for this deal to go on. But this does not mean that the war has ended. The threat is still there, and it needs to be eliminated for Israelis to feel secure again.
Right, Mr. Levy, you speak of how Netanyahu has a complex scenario around him, where on one hand he needs to get back the hostages because he just released a statement in which he said that Israel is committed to bring back all the hostages back to the country. But while he has, the IDF is also clearly asserted on how the ultimate goal of the war is to eliminate Hamas. Do you think Israel will be able to strike a balance between these two?
Again, I think it's a very complex situation, and under the circumstances, the IDF has been doing its a very, very intense work in order to first bring back its civilians. There has been ongoing negotiation to bring back the hostages and still inflict a strike on Hamas in order to eliminate its threat. So it's a difficult situation, and we're looking at a very long operation. I have no doubt that eventually the goals of the war will be achieved.
And what are the chances of the truce culminating into a lasting and sustained ceasefire?
I think that at this point, the government has said that the ceasefire, more than a 4-day ceasefire, is out of the question. Again, the work that needs to be done has not been completed yet. Obviously, many civilians are still under the threat of Hamas, and unless this threat is eliminated, this conflict cannot end.
Right, because the IDF is also telling people in Gaza to not move towards the northern side of Gaza at the moment, despite the truce coming into effect.
Again, so the war is not ended yet, and Israel is committed to take the necessary precaution to prevent harm to innocent civilians in Gaza. That's why it opened a humanitarian passage for civilians to go to somewhere that is safe. And therefore, since the war has not ended yet and the conflict is not ended, there's no point for them going back to the northern part of Gaza.
Right, Mr. Levy, the U.S. has clearly played a major role in diplomatic parleys in West Asia, but there was no American in the first batch of hostages freed. Are you surprised that no American was allowed to walk free? And what does this mean for diplomatic efforts?
Well, there were some Americans that were released some weeks ago. And I think that the United States plays an important role in the negotiation, in the diplomatic effort. But eventually, we have to remember that we're dealing with an organization that is very unexpected, and the negotiations are mediated by various actors in the international community. So I'm assuming that eventually this was the best deal that could have been reached.
Right, Mr. Levy. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION and sharing insights with us.
Thank you very much.